In Diablo 2, for the longest time, the Fenzon was more of a joke or side build at best. With the release of 2.4 in Resurrected, though, a number of interesting changes have taken place, and our old Fenzon, which is linked at the end of the video and in the description, has gone from passable to solid. Though, to keep from just releasing the same video all over again, I decided to take another challenge for this skill. Can we get it to work well with a shield? Needless to say, it's got a red background, so yes. So what changed? Well, they've altered several key factors that hindered a melee Amazon. Namely, the dodge skills now will not interrupt your fend, and fend now has a serious increase in attack speed due to a major reduction in the back half of the animation. Basically, where a good chunk of your time in the old fend was spent pulling back from the swing. Now you can swing exceptionally fast against multiple targets, though jab is still better against single targets. Another factor that makes the Javelin and Shield Fenzon tempting is that skills with cooldowns no longer interrupt attack strings. This means we can use Fend with things like Phoenix, or even Armor and Gloves that would have previously interrupted it. Though for this one, I'm only using that Phoenix aspect to our advantage. Starting out, Mercenary choice can make a bit of a difference in this build. For me, since I'm focusing on physical damage, I went with a Reaper's Toll Might Mercenary from Act 2. There are alternatives, such as the Act 5 Mercenary with Lawbringer or the Act 1 Mercenary with Wrath. And while both of these would save us some skill points if we wanted to go hybrid, I decided to go with Fend to have it be the star of the show and go with the Act 2 one because it boosts it specifically. And I'll probably cover the Lightning Fend and Poison Fend variants that can use those extra points a little bit more usefully in a later date. As far as stats, I actually decided to go with max block since we wanted the durability. And while we have Impale for guaranteed hits, I wanted my Fend and Jab to be super reliable too, so enough strength for gear, enough dexterity for max block, and we still pulled out a bit over 1,000 life, fully geared up without any battle orders or such. Skill-wise, it's actually really open. For this flavor, I went to 20 in Fend and left Jab and Impale at one point since Jab's actual damage won't increase enough to justify the cost, and Impale is mostly fine with plus skills to get it over the 50% slow marker for bosses. Everything else is just icing on the cake. So in the Javelin tree, I dumped into getting a fully synergized Plague and Poison Javelin for testing another build, as well as dealing with physical immunes, though I never really had to break it out thanks to the Mercenary Decrepify. And in the passive tree, outside of some obligatory points in Valkyrie, I decided to show off a skill that rarely gets love, and that is Inner Sight. Since with 20 points in it and our plus skills, it does actually help a lot, though admittedly against something like Bale, it's far less useful, but still nice. Obviously, the easier alternative is Penetrate for higher attack rating, but most people often forget that the Amazon does have her own quirky version of basically Battle Cry or Conviction's key effects for certain builds, though it is far more useful in a party than solo since it interacts nicely with curses and auras by not overriding them. Honestly, the extra 1,300 defense stripped off of enemies is a lot more than you would expect. Equipment-wise, we already covered one of the key parts, and that is Phoenix. The reason we went with this shield is because it provides a significant bump to physical damage, as well as giving us access to the Redemption aura for keeping us topped off even in tough battles. The other perks, such as increased maximum resist, are nice to have as well, especially when dealing with stuff like Gloams. The only other really expensive part of kit we're using is Fortitude, again for the enhanced damage, resists, etc. And while neither of these are 100% necessary for the build to function, I would probably lean towards the two-handed Spearzon variant if you don't have access to these, unless you are going for a hybrid Javelin build, which is also feasible. In terms of weapons, since I want decent physical damage, we're going with upgraded Titans. Obviously, Ethereal would be better, as would some GG rare Javelins with higher percent enhanced damage, but I wanted to keep this in the realm of reason for testing purposes, and this was fit for purpose, that I didn't want to upgrade any Ethereal Titans, because I want to keep their stats low for the characters that actually use it. The rest of our gear is pretty predictable if you watched the old Fenzon video. Ravenfrost for Cannot Be Frozen and Dexterity, our usual Dual Leech Ring, though a Resist Ring with a bit of Mana Leech would work just fine too, High Lord's Wrath for the Amulet for attack speed and crit chance, Gyomes and Gore Riders for Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, etc., though I did throw a Shale in Gyomes, just so we're one small charm away from the next hit recovery frame, String of Ears for damage reduction and pinch of life leech, then Lava Gout for attack speed, since I usually run every area in Marathon settings for each difficulty, and I don't want to be bothered recasting Enchant with Demon Limb, although more power to you if you want to, though you can run also a 220 rare glove, or even Leg of Hands if you just want the speed for some of the attacks. Overall, while it's not quite up to snuff with the Zealot, because the Zealot can pack any weapon he wants, and this is mainly due to the limited weapon variety on the Jabazon and lack of one-handed rune words for these skills, it's still quite solid for a melee build in the game, and is arguably even tankier than the Paladin thanks to being able to stack those dodge skills with block, and even if you want to include it, the changes to slow missiles, which we'll probably cover in another video.